The boy helped a stranger with Alzheimer's get home despite warnings to stay away. When he saw the medical bracelet's engraving, his hands started shaking as memories of his grandfather flooded back. Marcus checked his phone, 5:47 p.m. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the buildings orange. His worn blue sweatshirt had a fresh paint stain from art class, and his backpack weighed heavy on his shoulders. He needed to get home before dark. "Be careful out there, baby. Don't talk to strangers," his mom had said that morning, adjusting her nurse's scrubs before heading to her first shift. The words echoed in his head as he walked past the convenience store on Cedar Street. The same route every day, past Mr. Chen's grocery, around the construction site, 3 blocks down to Mason Avenue. But today was different. There, at the intersection of Mason and 4th, stood an old man in a beige sweater, looking at the street signs like they were written in a foreign language. Marcus's feet slowed. His phone buzzed, probably Mom checking if he was home. The man turned in circles, his silver hair catching the evening light. A businessman in a dark suit walked past, phone raised, recording the old man's confusion. "Sir, are you okay?" the businessman called out, keeping his distance. The old man didn't respond. His hand shook as he patted his pockets. Marcus's grandfather used to do that, pat his pockets, looking for things that weren't there. The memory hit him like a punch to the stomach. Last year, before the nursing home, before the end, Grandpa had gotten lost 3 blocks from home. They found him 6 hours later, scared and cold. A city bus roared past. The old man stumbled back from the curb. "Someone should call the police," a woman said, hurrying past with shopping bags. Marcus watched as more people walked by. Some stared. Some pretended not to see. Some pulled out phones to record. Nobody stopped. Something small and silver fell from the old man's wrist, clinking against the sidewalk. A medical bracelet. Marcus took 3 steps forward before his mom's warning crossed his mind again. The old man knelt, fingers fumbling on the concrete. I need to." The sun dipped lower. Marcus had homework to finish. Mom would worry if he was late. But his feet moved forward anyway. The bracelet lay just out of the old man's reach. Marcus bent down and picked it up. The metal felt cool against his palm. Engraved letters caught his eye. Thompson, William. Alzheimer's patient. His throat tightened. Alzheimer's. Like Grandpa. "Sir." Marcus's voice came out smaller than he meant it to. "Mr. Thompson." The old man looked up. Fear flickered across his face. The same fear Marcus had seen in his grandfather's eyes that day they found him. "I'm Marcus. I found your bracelet." He held it out, hand steady even though his heart raced. Mr. Thompson stared at the bracelet, then at Marcus. "I need to get home," he said, voice trembling. "But the streets, they're all wrong." More people passed by. The businessman was still filming from across the street. A group of teenagers laughed nearby. Marcus glanced at his phone again. 6:03 p.m. Mom would be calling soon. But Mr. Thompson's hands were shaking harder now, and the sun kept sinking. "Where do you live, Mr. Thompson?" Marcus asked, thinking of Grandpa, thinking of those 6 hours they searched. "Fine." Mr. Thompson's eyes darted around. "There's a blue house, with white shutters. But I can't." Marcus looked at the bracelet again. Below the medical information was an address, 1247 Oakwood Drive. His own house was in the opposite direction. Mom's voice in his head got louder. "Don't talk to strangers. Come straight home." But Grandpa's voice was there too, from before he got sick. "Sometimes doing the right thing means being a little scared, Marcus." The businessman crossed the street, phone still recording. "Hey, kid, maybe you should dash. I know where Oakwood Drive is," Marcus said to Mr. Thompson, ignoring the businessman. "I can help you get home." Mr. Thompson's eyes filled with tears. "You know where?" "Yes, sir. It's not far." Marcus held out the bracelet. "Here, let me help you put this back on." The businessman stepped closer. "I really think my grandfather had Alzheimer's," Marcus said, loud enough for the businessman to hear. "I know how to help." His fingers worked the bracelet clasp like he'd done for Grandpa 100 times. Mr. Thompson's wrist felt thin and cold. The sun touched the tops of the buildings. Long shadows stretched across the sidewalk. Marcus's phone buzzed again in his pocket. "Ready, Mr. Thompson?" He offered his arm like he used to do for Grandpa. "We'll take it slow." The old man hesitated, then gripped Marcus's arm. His hand trembled less now. Behind them, Marcus heard the businessman talking into his phone. Yeah, there's a situation here. But Marcus focused on Mr. Thompson's steps, on keeping them steady. One foot in front of the other. Just like with Grandpa, the sky darkened to deep orange. They had maybe an hour of daylight left. Marcus thought of his unfinished homework, of his mom's worried voice when he wouldn't answer her calls. But Mr. Thompson needed help. And this time, unlike with Grandpa, Marcus could do something about it. They took their first steps together toward Oakwood Drive, leaving the businessman and his phone behind. The evening traffic rushed past. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Marcus felt the weight of Mr. Thompson's hand on his arm, heard the shuffle of uncertain feet beside him. His own steps grew more confident. He'd probably be grounded for this. But as the sky darkened and the city lights began to flicker on, Marcus knew one thing for certain. He'd made the right choice. Marcus's phone buzzed for the third time. The screen lit up his pocket. Mom calling. He let it ring. Mr. Thompson's grip tightened on his arm. My wife, he said suddenly. She'll be worried. We'll get you home soon, sir. Marcus guided them around a cracked section of sidewalk. Just a few more blocks. The old man's steps faltered. But, who are you? Marcus's stomach clenched. Grandpa used to do this too. Forget things just minutes after they happened. I'm Marcus, sir. We met at the corner. Remember? I found your bracelet. Mr. Thompson stared at him with blank eyes. A car horn blared nearby, making him jump. I shouldn't be here. He tried to pull away. It's okay, Mr. Thompson. Marcus kept his voice steady, just like the nurses had taught him with Grandpa. Look at your bracelet. See? I'm helping you get to Oakwood Drive. Behind them, footsteps approached. The businessman was following, still filming. Everything all right there? He called out. Marcus didn't turn around. Yes, sir. I'm helping Mr. Thompson get home. Should I call someone? The police, maybe. Mr. Thompson's hand started trembling again. Police? No need, sir, Marcus said firmly. We're okay. The last time someone called the police for Grandpa, they put him in handcuffs. They didn't understand, he was just confused. Marcus still remembered his grandfather's tears. They passed the old movie theater, its neon signs flickering to life in the dusk. Mr. Thompson stopped suddenly. I know this place, he whispered. The theater. Mary and I, we had our first date here. 1962? Marcus smiled. That's right, sir. We're on the right path to your house. The house. Mr. Thompson's face clouded again. Which house? A group of teenagers crossed the street ahead of them, pointing and whispering. Marcus heard one of them laugh. Yo, what's that kid doing with that old man? Someone should call the cops. Marcus's chest tightened. He thought of Grandpa again. That day they found him wandering downtown. People had stared then too, whispered behind their hands. Let's keep going, Mr. Thompson. He tugged gently on the old man's arm. Tell me more about Mary. That's your wife? Mary. Mr. Thompson's eyes lit up. Yes. She wears blue dresses. Always blue. Says it matches her eyes. They turned onto Maple Street. The street lights were coming on, casting pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. Marcus's phone buzzed again. His mom would be frantic by now. He should answer, explain. But he needed both hands, one for Mr. Thompson, one to guide them through the growing darkness. The businessman was still behind them, talking into his phone. Yeah, I'm following them. The old man seems confused. The kid says he's helping, but Mr. Thompson's legs began to shake. I need to rest. There's a bench right there, sir. Marcus pointed to a bus stop ahead. We can sit for a minute. They made their way to the bench. Mr. Thompson sank down heavily, his breathing labored. Marcus sat beside him, thinking of another bench, another rest stop. A year ago, Grandpa had been so tired that day, so scared. I don't know you, Mr. Thompson said suddenly, edges of fear in his voice. That's okay, sir. Marcus kept his tone calm. I'm Marcus. I'm helping you get home to Mary. Mary. The fear faded slightly. She'll be making dinner. Meatloaf on Thursdays. It was Wednesday, but Marcus nodded. That sounds nice. The businessman stood a few yards away, phone still raised. A police siren wailed in the distance, getting closer. Mr. Thompson grabbed Marcus's arm. I hear sirens. Like the war. We have to take cover. It's okay, sir. We're safe. Marcus moved closer, remembering how the nurses would ground Grandpa in the present. Feel the bench under you? Feel the cool air? We're in the city. No war here. The old man's grip loosened slightly. The city? Yes, sir. And we're getting you home to Mary. A police car cruised past slowly. The businessman waved, but the car didn't stop. Marcus's phone buzzed again. 8 missed calls now. Should we keep going, Mr. Thompson? Mary's waiting. The old man nodded uncertainly. Marcus helped him up, noting how his legs shook less after the rest. They passed a grocery store, its fluorescent lights harsh against the darkening sky. A woman with a shopping cart stopped to stare. Everything okay? She asked, eyes moving between Marcus and Mr. Thompson. Yes, just helping him get home. She frowned. Does his family know? Before Marcus could answer, Mr. Thompson spoke up. Mary knows. She's making meatloaf. The woman's frown deepened. She pulled out her phone. Marcus quickened their pace slightly. Come on, Mr. Thompson. Not far now. The old man matched his steps, mumbling about Mary and meatloaf. The businessman and the woman with the shopping cart fell behind. More sirens in the distance. More stares from passers-by. Marcus's phone kept buzzing. But he thought of Grandpa, lost and alone that day. No one had stopped to help him. No one had taken his hand and guided him home. The sky was purple now, the last orange light fading. Street lamps cast long shadows ahead of them. I'm tired, Mr. Thompson said. Where are we going? Home, sir. To Mary. Marcus pointed to a street sign ahead. See there? We're getting close to Oakwood Drive. Mr. Thompson squinted at the sign. Oakwood? Yes, sir. Where you and Mary live. In the blue house with white shutters. Blue house. The old man's voice trembled. But what if? What if it's not there? Marcus squeezed his arm gently. It's there, Mr. Thompson. Trust me. Trust me. The last words he'd said to Grandpa before the nursing home. Before everything changed. They walked on through the gathering darkness, 2 figures moving slowly under the street lamps, followed by shadows and whispers and the quiet buzz of a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. The street sign for Oakwood Drive gleamed under the streetlight. Marcus's phone had stopped buzzing, probably dead by now. His mom would be out looking for him. Almost there, Mr. Thompson. He pointed at the sign. See? Oakwood Drive. The old man squinted up at the green metal. Oakwood, yes. Mary planted oak trees. 3 of them. A police car rolled past, slowing as it approached them. Marcus's heart pounded. The officer inside stared but didn't stop. Tell me about the trees, sir, Marcus said, keeping them walking. The businessman was still following, 30 feet back. Big trees now, Mr. Thompson mumbled. We're just saplings when. His voice trailed off. Who are you? Marcus swallowed hard. I'm Marcus, sir. I'm helping you get home. Home? Fear crept into Mr. Thompson's voice. But it's dark. Why am I out in the dark? A group of teenage boys approached on bikes, circling them slowly. Yo, what's going on? One called out. Mind your business, Marcus said, voice firmer than he felt. Should we call the cops? Another boy pulled out his phone. Already did. The businessman called from behind them. I'm following to make sure everything's okay. Mr. Thompson's grip on Marcus's arm tightened painfully. Who are these people? Where's Mary? It's okay, sir. Marcus glared at the boys. They're just passing by. Mary's waiting at home. Remember? The boys rode away, laughing. One yelled back, crazy old man. Mr. Thompson tried to pull away. I don't know you. I don't know this place. Please, Mr. Thompson. Marcus held on gently but firmly, like the nurses had shown him. Look at your bracelet. Remember? I'm helping you get home. The old man's eyes dropped to his wrist. His fingers touched the metal band. Home, he whispered. Blue house. White shutters. That's right, sir. Marcus started walking again, slower now. Tell me more about those oak trees. They passed houses with warm light spilling from windows. Families inside, having dinner. Safe. His own mom would be frantic by now. Mr. Thompson's feet shuffled against the sidewalk. Mary waters them every Sunday. Says they need special care. Marcus suggested. Yes. Mr. Thompson smiled briefly. Special care. Like her garden. Roses and what color are the roses, sir? Red. No, Yellow. Mary loves yellow. His face crumpled. But I can't remember. Why can't I remember? Marcus's chest ached. He'd had this exact conversation with Grandpa, watching him struggle to recall simple things. The businessman's footsteps got closer. Kid, maybe we should stop and wait for the police. We're almost there, Marcus called back without turning. Mr. Thompson knows this street. More houses passed. More stares from windows. More cars slowing down to watch. Mr. Thompson stopped suddenly. I smell something burning. No, sir. Nothing's burning. Marcus looked around. Those are just someone's barbecue. The hospital was burning, Mr. Thompson said. In Vietnam. I can smell it. His whole body started shaking. Marcus remembered what the nurse had taught him about grounding. Feel my arm, Mr. Thompson? Feel how solid it is. You're here with me, not in Vietnam. We're walking to your house on Oakwood Drive. Oakwood. The trembling slowly subsided. Mary's there. Yes, sir. Mary's waiting. They started walking again. The businessman's phone light bounced behind them. House numbers ticked by. 1235. 1239. 1243. Mr. Thompson's steps got heavier. Marcus adjusted his grip, taking more of the old man's weight. A dog barked somewhere nearby. Mr. Thompson jumped. Just a dog, sir. Like your neighbor's dog. Does your neighbor have a dog? Mrs. Peterson. Mr. Thompson nodded. Black dog. Barks all night. See? You remember. We must be getting close. 1245. The next house would be it. More sirens in the distance. The businessman was talking into his phone again. Yeah, they are still walking. Coming up on Oakwood now. Mr. Thompson stopped again. I'm tired. So tired. I know, sir. But look. Marcus pointed ahead. Through the darkness, a blue house emerged. White shutters gleamed in the streetlight. Is that it? The old man stared. His mouth opened, closed. 3 oak trees, Marcus said. See them? Big trees now. Just like you said. Mr. Thompson took a shaky step forward. Mary! Light spilled from the front windows. A figure moved inside. Almost there, sir. Marcus's voice cracked. Mary's right there. They walked up to the gate. Mr. Thompson's hand shook as he touched the familiar latch. Behind them, the businessman stepped closer. I should go first. Make sure Dash. No, Marcus said firmly. This is his house. His wife's inside. The gate creaked open. 3 oak trees stood guard over the front yard, their leaves rustling in the evening breeze. Mr. Thompson touched one rough trunk. Mary planted these. The day we moved in. That's right, sir. Marcus guided him toward the front door. She's waiting for you. Light blazed on the porch, triggered by their movement. Mr. Thompson blinked in the sudden brightness. The businessman hung back at the gate, phone still recording. Marcus's own phone sat cold and dead in his pocket. His mom would be sick with worry. But Mr. Thompson's hand was steady now on the oak tree. His eyes fixed on the front door. Mary, he called out, voice stronger than it had been all evening. Movement inside. A shadow approached the door. Marcus held his breath. Please be home, he thought. Please be the right house. The door opened. A woman stood there, gray hair tied back, wearing a blue dress. Her eyes widened. William. Her voice broke. William, where have you been? Mr. Thompson straightened. Mary? The streets? They were all wrong. But this boy. He turned to Marcus, recognition finally clear in his eyes. This boy brought me home. Mary's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Oh, William. She reached for him. Come inside, sweetheart. Come inside. Mr. Thompson took a step toward her, then stopped. He turned back to Marcus. Thank you, he said clearly. I was lost. And you. Marcus nodded, his own eyes burning. You're home now, sir. You're safe. Mary reached out and grabbed Marcus's hand. Her fingers were warm. Please, she said. Please come in. Let me call your family. Behind them, the businessman finally lowered his phone. Marcus looked at the oak trees, the white shutters, the warm light spilling from the doorway. He thought of Grandpa, who never made it home that day. Yes, he said quietly. I'd like to come in. They walked through the door together, leaving the darkness and the whispers and the sirens behind. Inside, the house smelled like dinner. Not meatloaf, chicken, maybe, but Mr. Thompson didn't seem to notice. He was home. That was all that mattered. Marcus followed them into the light, exhausted but certain, finally, that he'd done the right thing. The Thompsons' living room was warm, filled with old furniture and family photos. Marcus sat on the edge of a floral-patterned couch, watching as Mary helped Mr. Thompson into his favorite armchair. "Let me get you some water, William." She touched her husband's shoulder. "And you too, young man. You must be thirsty." Through the front window, Marcus saw the businessman still standing at the gate, talking to someone on his phone. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance. "The police are coming," Mr. Thompson said suddenly. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart." Mary's voice trembled. "Everything's fine now. You're home." She hurried to the kitchen. Marcus heard water running, ice clinking in glasses. His own phone sat useless in his pocket. He needed to call his mom. "May I use your phone, Mrs. Thompson?" he called out. "Of course, dear. It's on the wall in the kitchen." Marcus stood, legs shaking slightly from the long walk. As he passed Mr. Thompson, the old man grabbed his arm. "Don't go," he said, eyes wide. "The streets, they're all wrong out there." "It's okay, sir. I'm just going to the kitchen." "See? Right through that doorway." Mr. Thompson's grip loosened. "Mary's in there." "That's right." In the kitchen, Mary stood at the sink, shoulders shaking. When she turned, her cheeks were wet. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping her eyes. "He's never wandered this far before. If you hadn't found him." A knock at the front door made them both jump. Through the kitchen doorway, Marcus saw Mr. Thompson try to get up from his chair. "Police! Could you open the door, please?" Mary set down the glasses. "I'll get it." Marcus picked up the wall phone, hands sweating as he dialed his mom's number. It rang twice. "Hello." His mom's voice was tight with panic. "Mom, it's me." "Marcus? Baby, where are you?" "I've been driving all over Dash. I'm okay." "Mom, I'm at 1247 Oakwood Drive. I had to help someone." Dash voices carried from the living room. Two police officers stood just inside the door, the businessman hovering behind them. "We got multiple calls about a young boy leading an elderly man through the streets," one officer said. "That's my husband," Mary explained. "He has Alzheimer's. He wandered away, and this kind young man helped him get home." Marcus's mom was still talking. "Stay right there. I'm coming to get you." "What were you thinking? Not answering your phone?" "My battery died. Mom, I had to help. He was lost, like Grandpa Dash." "Don't move. I'll be there in 10 minutes." The line went dead. In the living room, the officers were questioning Mr. Thompson. "Sir, do you know this boy?" Mr. Thompson stared at them blankly. "Boy, the one who brought you here." "He." The old man looked around, confusion clouding his face. "Where is he?" The officers exchanged glances. One turned to Mary. "Can you verify this is your husband?" "Yes, of course." Mary pulled out her wallet, hands shaking. "Here's his ID. And look at his medical bracelet." Dash. The businessman spoke up from the doorway. "I followed them for 12 blocks. The old man seemed very confused. "I wasn't sure if Dash. You followed them." Mary's voice sharpened. "Instead of helping, I was concerned." Dash. Concerned enough to film a confused old man, but not enough to offer assistance. Marcus stepped back into the living room. Mr. Thompson was breathing faster, eyes darting between the uniforms. "Charlie," he called out suddenly. "Charlie, we need backup. They're coming through the trees." "William, no." Mary rushed to his side. "You're home, sweetheart. These are police officers." "Police?" His hand clutched the armrest. "Am I under arrest?" The older officer knelt beside the chair. "No, sir. We just needed to make sure you were safe." More red and blue lights flashed outside. Another patrol car. Marcus's stomach churned. He should have answered his phone. Should have called for help right away. Now everyone was upset, and Mr. Thompson was scared again. "I can explain," he said, stepping forward. "I found Mr. Thompson at Mason and Fourth. He was lost. I saw his medical bracelet." Dash. "You should have called 911, son," the younger officer said. "My grandfather had Alzheimer's too. Last year, he got lost, and nobody helped him. Nobody even stopped." Mary touched his shoulder. "You did the right thing. William could have wandered into traffic, or Dash." A car door slammed outside. Quick footsteps on the porch. "Marcus! Mom!" He turned as she burst through the door, still in her nurse's scrubs. She grabbed him, pulling him close. Baby, are you okay? I was so worried, the older officer said. Your son brought this gentleman home. He was wandering confused on Mason Avenue. Mom's arms tightened around Marcus. Is that true? He has Alzheimer's, Mom. Like Grandpa. I couldn't just leave him. She pulled back, looking at his face. Then she turned to Mary. I'm so sorry if he caused any trouble, Trouble? Mary wiped fresh tears. He saved my husband's life. Mr. Thompson spoke up from his chair. Mary? Why are all these people here? It's okay, William. Mary knelt beside him. They are here because they care about you. The businessman cleared his throat from the doorway. I should go. I just wanted to make sure, You have it all on video, Mary said coldly. I'm sure that made for good social media content. He flushed, backing away. The police officers exchanged looks. Well, the older one said, everything seems to be in order here. Wait. Mom stepped forward. I'm a nurse at County General. We have protocols for Alzheimer's patients who wander. Do you have a safe return bracelet? GPS tracking. Mary shook her head. The regular medical bracelet was all we could afford, I have resources. Information about programs that can help. Mom pulled out her phone. Let me give you my number. Marcus watched as the adults talked about tracking devices, support groups, respite care. Things he'd heard them discuss for Grandpa. Before the end, Mr. Thompson reached for his sleeve. Young man. Yes, sir. Did you bring me home? Marcus swallowed hard. Yes, sir. You were lost. Lost, the old man repeated. The streets were wrong, but we found the right one. Oakwood Drive. Oakwood. Mr. Thompson smiled slightly. Mary planted trees. 3 oak trees. Right outside. The old man's eyes cleared for a moment. Thank you. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. You're welcome, Mr. Thompson. Outside, the police cars pulled away, red and blue lights fading into the darkness. The businessman was long gone. Mom and Mary were still talking, exchanging phone numbers, making plans. Mr. Thompson's hand found Mary's sleeve. I'm tired. I know, sweetheart. She smoothed his silver hair. Let's get you to bed. Marcus watched as she helped him up, their movements slow but sure, practiced over years of marriage. At the bottom of the stairs, Mr. Thompson stopped. Turn back. The boy, he said. The boy who brought me home. I'm right here, sir. The old man nodded. The streets were wrong, but you made them right again. Then he let Mary lead him upstairs, into the familiar darkness of their home. Mom squeezed Marcus's shoulder. Ready to go, baby? He nodded, suddenly exhausted. But as they walked to the car, he looked back at the house. 3 oak trees stood guard. Light glowed in an upstairs window. Mr. Thompson was home. That's what mattered, even if he wouldn't remember tomorrow. The next morning, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, pushing cereal around in his bowl. Mom had called in late to her shift so they could talk. You understand why I was scared? She reached across the table, touching his hand. When you didn't answer your phone, I know, Mom. But Mr. Thompson needed help. Baby, there are people trained to handle these situations. Police, medical professionals, a knock at the door interrupted her. Marcus's spoon clattered against the bowl. Mom went to answer it. Through the kitchen doorway, Marcus saw Mary Thompson standing there, wearing another blue dress. I'm sorry to disturb you, Mary said. But William, he keeps asking about the boy who brought him home. Mom hesitated. He remembers. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But he's agitated. Could Marcus? Would it be all right if he visited? Just for a little while. Marcus was already standing. Can I go? Mom? Please. Mom looked between them. I have to get to work, He could stay with us until you're done. Mary offered. After what he did for William. 10 minutes later, Marcus walked beside Mary down Oakwood Drive. The morning sun warmed his shoulders. William had a good night, Mary said. First time in weeks he slept through. They passed under the oak trees. A black dog barked from behind Mrs. Peterson's fence. See? Marcus pointed. The dog you told us about. Mr. Thompson was right. Mary's eyes filled with tears. He remembers so little now. But last night, with you, he was clearer than has been in months. Inside the house, Mr. Thompson sat in his armchair, staring out the window. He turned as they entered. Mary? Is that the boy? Yes, William. This is Marcus. He helped you yesterday. Remember? Mr. Thompson's forehead creased. Yesterday. You were lost, sir, Marcus said gently. I helped you find Oakwood Drive. Oakwood? The old man touched his medical bracelet. The streets were wrong, but we found the right one. Together. Mr. Thompson smiled slightly. Yes, together. Mary wiped her eyes. I'll make some tea. When she left, Marcus sat on the couch. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains, catching dust motes in the air. Young man. Mr. Thompson leaned forward. Did you know I was a teacher? No, sir. What did you teach? History. 32 years. His eyes cleared. The children, they were like you. Kind. Marcus thought of his grandfather teaching him to fish before the confusion started. The patience in his hands. Tell me about your students, sir. For the next hour, Mr. Thompson talked. Sometimes the stories wandered, times and places mixing together. But Marcus listened, asked questions, helped him find his way back when he got lost in memories. Mary brought tea and cookies. She sat quietly, watching them. Vietnam, Mr. Thompson said suddenly. The hospital? Would you like to hear about my grandfather, sir? Marcus interrupted gently, seeing the fear start in the old man's eyes. He taught me how to fish. Fish! The fear faded. I used to fish. Lake Michigan. A car slowed outside. Through the window, Marcus saw the businessman from yesterday, phone raised. Mary stood quickly. I'll handle this. She went to the door. Marcus heard her voice, sharp with anger. You need to leave. Now. I just wanted to apologize, by filming us again. Mr. Thompson's hands started shaking. Who's there? Mary's. Nobody important. William. She came back inside. Just a salesman. But the moment was broken. Mr. Thompson looked around, confusion clouding his face. Where am I? Your home, sir. Marcus kept his voice steady. In your house on Oakwood Drive. See the oak trees outside. The old man stared through the window. Trees. Mary planted them. The day you moved in. Mary's. His eyes found his wife. You're wearing blue. Yes, sweetheart. She sat beside him. Your favorite color. The boy, Mr. Thompson said. He knows about the trees. Because you told me, sir. Yesterday, when I helped you get home. Understanding flickered in the old man's eyes. The streets were wrong, but we found the right one. Mary touched Marcus's shoulder. You're good at this. The way you keep him grounded. The nurses taught me. With Grandpa. Marcus swallowed hard. Before he got too sick. Mr. Thompson reached for his hand. Don't be sad, son. The streets, they come back sometimes. Tears pricked Marcus's eyes. Yes, sir. They do. They sat together as the morning sun climbed higher. Mr. Thompson drifted between present and past, but Marcus held on, guiding him back each time. Around noon, Mom texted, off shift soon. Coming to get you. William. Mary said softly. Marcus has to leave soon. The old man gripped Marcus's hand tighter. Leave. Just for today, sir. I can come back. Promise. Mr. Thompson's eyes were clear again, desperate. The streets, they might go wrong again. I promise. Marcus squeezed his hand. And look, you have your bracelet. With your address. Oakwood Drive. That's right. And Mary's here. Mary. Mr. Thompson smiled at his wife. She wears blue. A car pulled up outside. Mom, still in her scrubs. Mary went to the door. Thank you, she whispered to Marcus. For everything. Mr. Thompson watched him stand. You're leaving. Just for today, sir. Remember? I promised to come back. The old man nodded slowly. The boy who knows about the trees. Yes, sir. The oak trees Mary planted. Mom appeared in the doorway. Ready, baby. Marcus started to move away, but Mr. Thompson caught his sleeve. Son. Yes, sir. Thank you for making the streets right again. Marcus's throat tightened. You're welcome, Mr. Thompson. Outside, the oak trees cast dappled shadows on the sidewalk. The black dog barked from next door. How was it? Mom asked as they walked to the car. Marcus looked back at the house. Through the window, he saw Mary sitting beside Mr. Thompson, their hands clasped. Good, he said. The streets, They come back sometimes. Mom hugged him close. Yes, baby. They do. They drove home in silence. But Marcus knew he'd be back tomorrow. Because sometimes the streets went wrong. And sometimes you needed help finding your way home. Even if you forgot the way again the next day. A week had passed. Marcus sat doing homework at the Thompsons' kitchen table while Mary prepared dinner. The routine had become familiar. He'd walk there after school, stay until Mom finished her shift. More tea, dear. Mary set a fresh cup beside his math textbook. Thanks, Mrs. Thompson. He glanced toward the living room, where Mr. Thompson dozed in his armchair. Has he been okay today? Mary's hands paused on the kettle. He had a difficult morning. Kept trying to leave, saying he needed to get to school. To teach his class. Through the window, Marcus saw the businessman's car cruise past again, slower than normal traffic. Is still coming by. Mary's lips tightened. Every day. Claims he's just checking on us. Mr. Thompson stirred in his chair. Mary? Is someone here? Just Marcus, sweetheart. Remember? He's helping me with dinner. The old man blinked at them. Marcus, the boy who knows about the trees. That's right, sir. Marcus got up from the table. Would you like to look at them? The oak trees. They had developed this routine over the past week. When Mr. Thompson got confused, looking at the trees helped ground him. Marcus helped him to the window. The afternoon sun filtered through green leaves. Mary planted those, Mr. Thompson said. The day we moved in. Yes, sir. 3 oak trees. A police car rolled past, then the businessman's car again. Mr. Thompson's grip tightened on Marcus's arm. Who are they? Why do they keep watching? It's okay, sir. They're just passing by. But the old man's breathing quickened. No, they're looking for deserters. We have to hide. William. Mary rushed over. You're home. Safe. The hospital. Mr. Thompson's eyes went distant. It's burning. Marcus guided him back to his chair. Feel the cushions, sir? Your favorite chair. You're in your house on Oakwood Drive. Oakwood. The fear slowly faded. The trees. That's right. The oak trees Mary planted. A knock at the door made them all jump. Mary went to answer it. The businessman stood there, phone in hand. Mrs. Thompson, I wanted to apologize again about last week. I brought something that might help. He held out a small box. A GPS tracking device. Mary stared at it. We already told you, Dash. It's expensive. I know. But after what happened, I felt terrible about just filming instead of helping. Please, let me do this. Marcus watched from the living room as Mary's shoulders stiffened. You want to ease your conscience? Fine. But stop driving by our house. Stop filming us. I'm just concerned, Dash, no. Mary's voice sharpened. You're entertaining yourself with our pain. Making content out of my husband's illness. The businessman stepped back. That's not Dash. Leave us alone. She shut the door firmly. Mr. Thompson called out. Mary? Who was there? No one important, sweetheart. She came back, hands shaking as she set the GPS device on a side table. Marcus touched her arm. You okay, Mrs. Thompson? She wiped her eyes. I can't bear how people stare. Film. Like William's confusion is some kind of show. Mary. Mr. Thompson struggled to rise. You're crying. I'm fine, William. She forced a smile. Just tired. But the old man's eyes were suddenly clear. He walked unsteadily to her, touching her cheek. My Mary. Always taking care of me. She broke then, tears flowing freely. I'm trying, William. I'm trying so hard. I know. He pulled her close. I'm sorry. The streets. They go wrong in my head. Marcus started to step away, give them privacy. But Mr. Thompson caught his sleeve. Stay, son. You help make them right again. Through the window, Marcus saw the businessman's car pass once more. But inside, in the warm kitchen with its smell of baking bread, none of that mattered. They stood together as the sun sank lower, casting long shadows through the oak trees. Mary wiped her eyes. I should check on dinner. I'll help, Marcus said. Mr. Thompson watched them move around the kitchen, his eyes sometimes clear, sometimes confused. But he stayed in his chair by the window, watching the trees sway in the evening breeze. The doorbell rang again. Mary tensed. But it was just Mom, finished with her shift. She came in quietly, medical bag slung over her shoulder. How is everyone? Better now, Mary said. Marcus, he just knows how to help. Mom smiled. He had a good teacher. His grandfather dash. The hospital's burning, Mr. Thompson said suddenly. We have to dash, sir. Marcus knelt beside his chair. Look outside. See the oak trees. The old man's breathing slowed. Trees. Mary planted those. That's right. 3 oak trees. You're home. Mom watched them, tears in her eyes. She opened her medical bag. I brought something. A new type of medical alert bracelet. GPS enabled. She held it out. The hospital provides them now, for patients who qualify. Mary stared at it. We can't afford dash. It's covered. I filled out the paperwork. Mom took her hand. Let us help. Mr. Thompson touched his old bracelet. This one brought me home. Yes, sweetheart. Mary's voice broke. Because Marcus saw it. The boy who knows about the trees. Marcus smiled. That's right, sir. They helped Mr. Thompson put on the new bracelet. He studied it in the fading light. Mary? Is this? Am I? You're home? William. She kissed his forehead. And now we can always find you. Outside, cars passed. Sometimes they slowed. Sometimes people stared. But inside, Mr. Thompson held Mary's hand. Mom and Marcus set the table. The smell of fresh bread filled the kitchen. And through the window, 3 oak trees stood guard, their leaves golden in the sunset. The streets, Mr. Thompson whispered. Sometimes they come back right. Marcus touched his shoulder. Yes, sir, they do. Because even when memories faded, even when the paths grew confused, love remained. Like 3 oak trees, planted long ago, growing strong and steady through all the seasons of a life. The GPS bracelet beeped softly on Mr. Thompson's wrist. He sat at the kitchen table, watching Marcus work on his science homework. Those numbers, he said, pointing at Marcus's textbook. They look like coordinates. They're chemical formulas, sir. Marcus looked up. For my chemistry test tomorrow. Mr. Thompson nodded slowly. I taught chemistry. Before history. Mary, washing dishes at the sink, turned. No, sweetheart. You always taught history. Did I? He touched the bracelet. Things get mixed up sometimes. 2 weeks had passed since the night Marcus found him. The businessman's car hadn't driven by in days. Tell me about teaching history, sir. Marcus closed his textbook. What was your favorite subject? World War II. Mr. Thompson's eyes cleared. The Pacific Theater. I was there. You know. You served in Vietnam, sir, Marcus said gently. Remember? You told me about the hospital. The old man's hand started shaking. The hospital, it was burning. Look outside, William. Mary dried her hands. See the oak trees? Mr. Thompson turned to the window. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the leaves. You planted those, he said, the day we moved in. That's right. She touched his shoulder. 3 oak trees. The GPS bracelet beeped again. Mr. Thompson stared at it. Why does it make that sound? It's helping us keep you safe, Marcus explained. Like a guardian angel. Angel. Mr. Thompson smiled. Like you, son. You brought me home. The front door opened. Mom walked in, still in her scrubs. How's everyone doing? Good day, Mary said. His remembered Marcus each time. Mom set her medical bag down. The new medication must be helping. Medication? Mr. Thompson looked around. Am I sick? Marcus touched his arm. You just need a little help remembering sometimes, sir. Like my grandpa did. Your grandfather. The old man's face creased. Is he here? No, sir. He passed away last year. I'm sorry. Mr. Thompson gripped Marcus's hand. The streets, they went wrong for him too. Yes, sir. But nobody helped him find his way back. Mom wiped her eyes. Mary put an arm around her. That's why Marcus helped you, Mom said. He couldn't help his grandfather, but he could help you. Mr. Thompson looked at his bracelet again. This brings me home. That's right, sweetheart. Mary sat beside him. And Marcus helps too. The boy who knows about the trees. Yes, sir. Marcus smiled. The oak trees you and Mary planted. A car slowed outside. But this time it was Mrs. Peterson from next door. Her black dog barked from the back seat. Still keeping watch? Mary called through the open window. making sure that businessman doesn't come back. Mrs. Peterson waved. How's William today? Good day, Mary said. He remembers. Mr. Thompson stood shakily. Helen Peterson. You move in after us. Your husband Fred, he helped me build the fence. Mrs. Peterson's eyes filled with tears. That's right, William. 20 years ago now. The black dog barked again. Mr. Thompson smiled. Noisy dog. Barks all night. Some things never change. Mrs. Peterson wiped her eyes. Good to have you back, William. She drove on. Mr. Thompson watched her car disappear. Fred died, he said suddenly. Heart attack. 5 years ago. You remember, sweetheart? Mary squeezed his hand. Sometimes. He touched his temple. Sometimes things come back clear. Like sunlight through leaves. Marcus thought of his grandfather's last clear day. How he'd known everyone, remembered everything. One final gift before the darkness took him. Mom checked her watch. We should go, baby. School tomorrow. No. Mr. Thompson grabbed Marcus's arm. The streets, they might go wrong again. It's okay, sir. Marcus pointed to the bracelet. See, this will guide you home. And I'll be back tomorrow. Promise. I promise. Marcus stood. Want to look at the trees before I go? They walked to the window together. The oak trees cast long shadows in the setting sun. Mary planted those, Mr. Thompson said. The day we moved in. That's right, sir. 3 oak trees. You? The old man turned to him. You helped me find them again. Marcus swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Like you helped me just now, with my chemistry. Did I? Mr. Thompson smiled. Things get mixed up sometimes. But they come back. Like the streets. The streets? He touched his bracelet. They were wrong. But you made them right. Mom gathered Marcus's books. Mary hugged them both. Same time tomorrow, she asked. We'll be here. Mom shouldered her medical bag. William's tracking bracelet checkup is due anyway. Mr. Thompson watched them walk to the car. Just before Marcus got in, the old man called out, Son? Yes, sir. Thank you for knowing about the trees. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. You're welcome, Mr. Thompson. They drove home in the gathering dusk. Mom reached over, squeezed his hand. You're doing good work there, baby. Helping them both. Marcus watched the Thompson house disappear in the rearview mirror. 3 oak trees stood silhouetted against the sunset. The streets come back sometimes, he said softly. Yes. Mom wiped her eyes. They do. Because even when memories faded, even when paths grew twisted and strange, love remained. Like 3 oak trees, growing strong and steady, guiding lost travelers home. The GPS bracelet chirped an alert. Mary checked her phone, then relaxed. Just his normal afternoon walk to the window, she said. He likes to watch for Marcus. Mr. Thompson stood at the living room window, one hand pressed against the glass. Outside, rain fell softly on the oak trees. The boy who knows about the trees, he murmured. Will he come today? Yes, sweetheart. After school? Like always. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Mr. Thompson flinched. The hospital? Is it burning? No, William. Mary guided him to his chair. Just a storm. Look at your bracelet. You're home. He touched the GPS device. This brings me home? That's right. And Marcus helps too. Marcus. Mr. Thompson smiled. He makes the streets right again. The doorbell rang. Mary opened it to find Mrs. Peterson, holding an umbrella. Thought you might want some company until Marcus arrives. She held up a photo album. Found some old pictures of the neighborhood. Mr. Thompson perked up. Helen? Is Fred with you? Mrs. Peterson's smile faltered. No, William. Remember? Fred passed away. Oh. He touched his temple. Things get mixed up sometimes. That's okay. She sat beside him, opening the album. Look here. This is from the day you and Mary planted those oak trees. The photograph showed a younger Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, smiling beside 3 tiny saplings. Fred Peterson stood with them, shovel in hand. Small trees, Mr. Thompson said. Mary wanted them for shade. That's right. Mrs. Peterson turned the page. And here's the street fair, 1985. You were running the history booth. Thunder cracked louder. Mr. Thompson jumped. The mortars, they're getting closer. William. Mary knelt beside his chair. Look at the trees. Remember where you are. He stared out the window, breathing hard. The rain made patters like distant gunfire. The GPS bracelet chirped again. Mr. Thompson clutched it. This keeps me safe. Yes, sweetheart. And look, Marcus is here. Through the rain, they saw Marcus running from his mom's car, backpack held over his head. Mr. Thompson relaxed. The boy who knows about the trees. Marcus burst in, dripping water. Sorry I'm late. The bus got stuck in the storm. Change into dry clothes first, Mary said. I keep some of your spares in the laundry room. While Marcus changed, Mr. Thompson studied the photo album. That's me, he said, pointing. Teaching history. That's right, William. Mrs. Peterson smiled. You were everyone's favorite teacher. World War II. The Pacific Theater. Vietnam, Marcus corrected gently, returning in dry clothes. Remember, sir? You told me about the hospital. Mr. Thompson's hands started shaking. But then he looked at Marcus, really looked at him. You found me. When the streets were wrong. Yes, sir. 2 weeks ago. The medical bracelet. Mr. Thompson touched the GPS device. You saw it and knew. That's right. Marcus sat beside him. Like this new one helps you now. Thunder boomed. Mr. Thompson flinched but kept his eyes on Marcus. My grandfather got lost too, Marcus said softly. But nobody helped him. Lost? Mr. Thompson gripped Marcus's hand. The streets go wrong sometimes, but they come back. Yes. The old man smiled. Like you come back. Every day. Mrs. Peterson wiped her eyes. I've never seen him this clear for so long. Mary nodded. It's Marcus. Something about him. The boy who knows about the trees, Mr. Thompson said. He understands. Outside, the rain fell harder. But inside, they looked through old photos. Mr. Thompson named faces sometimes, places sometimes. When he got lost, Marcus guided him back. The front door opened. Mom came in, shaking water from her umbrella. Sorry I'm late. Roads are flooding. Sarah? Mr. Thompson looked up. You're a nurse. Like Mary used to be. Mom's eyes widened. Mary gasped softly. That's right, William. I didn't know you remembered. Things come back sometimes. He touched his temple, like sunlight through leaves. Marcus watched his mom check Mr. Thompson's vitals, adjust his medications. Her hands were gentle, like Mary's. The new treatment's working well, she said. His lucid periods are lasting longer. Thanks to Marcus, Mary said. Having him here, it's like William has an anchor. Mr. Thompson touched his GPS bracelet. This brings me home. But Marcus makes home feel right again. Thunder crashed directly overhead. The lights flickered. The hospital. Mr. Thompson tried to stand. It's burning. We have to dash, sir. Marcus took his hand. Look outside. See the oak trees. Rain streamed down the windows, but the trees stood strong. Mary planted those, Mr. Thompson whispered. The day we moved in. That's right. 3 oak trees. The old man's breathing slowed. You know about the trees? Yes, sir. You told me. Mrs. Peterson showed them another photo. Mr. Thompson teaching, surrounded by students. You helped them too, Marcus said. Like you helped me with my homework. Did I? Mr. Thompson smiled. Things get mixed up sometimes. But they come back. Like the streets. Yes, sir. Like the streets. The storm raged outside. But in the warm living room, they turned pages, shared stories. When Mr. Thompson got lost in the thunder, they guided him back. Mom checked her watch. We should go before the roads get worse. No. Mr. Thompson gripped Marcus's hand. The streets, they might go wrong again. It's okay, sir. Marcus pointed to the GPS bracelet. This will help you find home. And I'll be back tomorrow. Promise. I promise. Marcus stood. Want to look at the trees before I go? They walked to the window together. Rain poured down, but the oak trees stood firm. Mary planted those, Mr. Thompson said. The day we moved in. That's right, sir. 3 oak trees. You. He turned to Marcus. You helped me remember. Marcus swallowed hard. And you helped me too, sir. More than you know. Because in helping Mr. Thompson find his way home, Marcus had found something too. A way to honor his grandfather's memory. A way to make the wrong streets right again. Even if only for a moment. even if they had to find the path again tomorrow. Like 3 oak trees, standing strong through every storm, guiding lost travelers home. 1 month after Marcus found Mr. Thompson wandering the streets, they sat together under the oak trees. The GPS bracelet hummed softly, a quiet guardian. Mary's roses need water, Mr. Thompson said, pointing to the flower bed. Yellow ones. Her favorite. That's right, sir. Marcus closed his chemistry textbook. Want to help me water them? The old man gripped his walker. The streets, will they stay right? Yes, sir. We're just going to the garden. See your bracelet? It keeps you safe. They shuffled together across the lawn. The afternoon sun cast their shadows long beside them. You're good at this, Mr. Thompson said suddenly, voice clear. Taking care of old men who get lost. Marcus handed him the watering can. Had practice with my grandfather. He got lost too. Yes, sir. But nobody helped him find his way back. Mr. Thompson's hands trembled on the watering can. Water splashed on the yellow roses. That's why you stopped. That day on Mason Avenue. Marcus looked up sharply. Sometimes Mr. Thompson's memory surprised them all. Yes, sir. I couldn't just walk past. Not again. The old man nodded slowly. God sends angels sometimes. Wearing worn blue sweatshirts. Through the front window, they saw Mary watching them, wiping tears. William, she called. The new doctor's coming soon. Time to come in. Mr. Thompson touched a yellow rose. Mary loves yellow. Did I tell you that? Yes, sir. Many times. They walked back together, past the oak trees. Mr. Thompson stopped to touch one rough trunk. Mary planted these, he said, the day we moved in. That's right. 3 oak trees. Inside, Mary had set out cookies and tea. The GPS bracelet chirped softly. Just normal movement, she said, checking her phone. The tracking app works perfectly now. A car pulled up outside. Mom got out, followed by a man carrying a medical bag. Dr. Roberts, Mary greeted him. Thank you for coming to the house. Home visits are better for Alzheimer's patients. The doctor smiled at Mr. Thompson. Less confusing than the hospital. Mr. Thompson gripped Marcus's sleeve. The hospital? It was burning. Look at the trees, sir, Marcus said quickly. See them through the window. The old man's breathing steadied. Mary planted those. That's right. 3 oak trees. Dr. Roberts watched the exchange with interest. Mrs. Thompson mentioned you've been helping. Young man. Marcus found William when he wandered off. Mary explained. He's been coming every day since. The boy who knows about the trees, Mr. Thompson said. He makes the streets right again. The doctor checked vital signs, asked questions. Mr. Thompson answered some clearly, others not at all. The new medication is helping, Dr. Roberts said. And having a consistent routine, familiar faces, it makes a huge difference. Marcus is the real difference, Mary said. William remembers him, even on bad days. The GPS bracelet helps too, Mom added. No more wandering off. Mr. Thompson touched the device. This brings me home. That's right, sweetheart. Mary squeezed his hand. But Marcus. The old man's eyes were suddenly clear. Marcus brought me home first. Dr. Roberts made notes in his chart. Keep doing what you're doing. All of you. It's working. After he left, they sat in the living room. The afternoon light turned golden through the windows. Test tomorrow? Mr. Thompson asked, pointing at Marcus's textbook. Yes, sir. Chemistry. I taught chemistry. Before history. No, sweetheart. Mary smiled. You always taught history. Did I? He touched his temple. Things get mixed up sometimes. But they come back, Marcus said. Like the streets. Yes, sir. Like the streets. Mom checked her watch. We should go, baby. Dinner time. No. Mr. Thompson grabbed Marcus's arm. The streets might go wrong again. It's okay, sir. Marcus pointed to the GPS bracelet. This will guide you home. And I'll be back tomorrow. Promise. I promise. Marcus stood. Want to look at the trees before I go? They walked to the window together. The oak trees glowed in the sunset. Mary planted those, Mr. Thompson said. The day we moved in. That's right, sir. 3 oak trees. You. He turned to Marcus. You helped me remember. And you helped me too, sir. Mr. Thompson's eyes filled with tears. Your grandfather? He got lost. Yes, sir. But nobody stopped to help. So you stopped for me? Marcus swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Even though the streets were wrong, even though people stared. The streets come back sometimes, Marcus said softly. Because of you? Mr. Thompson hugged him suddenly. My guardian angel in a worn blue sweatshirt. Mary and Mom wiped their eyes. Outside, Mrs. Peterson walked her dog past the house, waving as she went. The GPS bracelet chirped gently. Mr. Thompson touched it. This brings me home, he said. But you, Marcus, you make home feel right again. They said their goodbyes. As Marcus walked to the car, Mr. Thompson called out, Son? Yes, sir. Thank you for knowing about the trees. Marcus felt tears spill down his cheeks. Thank you for teaching me, sir. Because in helping Mr. Thompson find his way home, Marcus had found something too. A way to heal the guilt of not helping his grandfather. A way to make the wrong streets right again. Even if the paths twisted tomorrow. Even if they had to find their way back again and again. Like 3 oak trees, planted long ago with love, growing strong and steady through all the seasons of life. Guiding lost travelers home. Mom drove slowly, letting Marcus watch the Thompson house disappear in the rearview mirror. 3 oak trees stood silhouetted against the sunset. You did good, baby, she said softly. Your grandfather would be proud. Marcus touched his own cheeks, felt the wetness there. Because sometimes the streets went wrong. Sometimes memories faded like sunlight through leaves. But love remained, like 3 oak trees, planted with hope, growing tall through darkness and light. Standing guard over a house where a lost old man found his way back. Thanks to a boy who stopped to help, who knew about the trees, who made the wrong streets right again. One step at a time, one memory at a time, one act of kindness that changed everything. Even if only for a moment, even if they had to find the path again tomorrow. Because that's what love does. It guides us home,